Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is CM Alexander with the news. The FBI believes notorious serial killer Pt.4 has ended his second cycle of killings. His previous cycle was marked by a 16-year gap between killings. This week marks a year since the last taunting letter was sent to the police. While many have suspected Pt.4 may have died or been arrested for another crime before he had the chance to claim another victim, those of us in Derry know better than anyone. Cycles repeat. You're listening to Derry Public Radio. This is Derry Public Radio. Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King Book Club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, CM Alexander, alongside Joshua Kahn.
Hey, everybody.
And Benjamin Graham.
Hey, Constant Raiders.
And today we are finishing one of our Patreon selections, Full Dark No Stars, picked by Tony Horstman. And we are covering A Good Marriage, and Josh is leading us through the discussion.
I am. So, I'm going to open this podcast with a question that no one ever asks in casual conversation. How's our marriage, guys?
Well,
it's a good one.
Okay.
I'm not married.
We're married.
We're the three of us.
Oh,
Podcast
the three
marriage.
How's our marriage?
Yeah.
Well, you got to be more specific.
Well, we've been together 6 years now. I didn't think I needed to be, Ben.
Oh, you hurt Josh.
Oh.
Okay, but following this bizarre open, if one of us were to secretly be a serial killer, which would it be?
Have we not
You,
discussed
for
this?
sure.
No.
Have we not had this?
I don't think we have.
I mean, we've had adjacent conversations.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking if like
I'm always the one to get murdered,
would
or
we
I'm
hide
killing
a
somebody.
body for each other? I think
Yeah, we've
talked
established that.
Would we drag each other to the Indian burial ground?
Yes.
Make a mistake. Yeah.
Is that what McMac stands for?
Make
a mistake, burial ground.
Oh, no. I hate how much I love that.
Speaking of Pet Cemetery, fun fact, we, of course, watched the movie of our book. Have we said what our book is yet? We've said
A Good Marriage.
Yeah.
We watched the movie. This movie is the first self-adapted screenplay by Stephen King since Pet Cemetery.
Okay.
What?
I thought that you were doing a bit.
Nope,
You
this
were
is
just going to talk about Pet Cemetery, the movie, while we talked about A Good Marriage.
nope. This is just a true fact.
That's an interesting
That is
bit.
interesting.
Yeah.
We have to say, just at the top here, we were all very excited about this story.
Yes.
And I was very excited, not very excited, I was accepting of the movie right up until the end. And our energy, the three of us, just went, ooh.
Because that's what the movie does.
I don't know. The movie, it had its moments, but I honestly almost fell asleep. This was almost my first movie I slept through part of.
It's better than Big Driver.
It's the low bar.
It's very low
bar
bar
to clear.
So let's discuss A Good Marriage. We are introduced to Darcelyn Madsen initially, soon to be Darcy Anderson. She is a woman who went to school to become a secretary, was hired by a car dealership. Along the way, they brought in an accounting firm, and she met the love of her life, Bob Anderson, CPA. And it was a beautiful marriage. It was a beautiful relationship. What do you guys think of the introduction the story does a great job of saying, before she found what she found, Darcy would have said she had a good marriage. And then it lets us stick in this little time for a while.
I could not help because Devin and I will have been together 19 years in August
Wild.
this year. Married for 9. I couldn't help but think of it in terms of us, which made me have some complicated thoughts as we go through here. Because it's like, what would I do? Like, we'll get to it. But yeah. I did like, the little, again, it's kind of like Lisi's story, but without the language beats. It's just all these little moments of they've been together so long. They know each other so well. They have a good thing going.
Yeah.
It is so stressful. This book stressed me out in a very real way.
Yeah.
I think the reason the opening works so well is it sets up this relationship so well. It feels so lived in that these people are just so comfortable with each other. So just a couple living a mundane life of the mundane shit that married couples go through. So I've been told. That once it gets into her discovery, you instantly feel like that drop in the pit of your stomach.
Yeah, the other shoe drops.
Now, by the time we pick up with them when she's about to find what she finds, they've been together a while. They are now 46 and 49 respectively, which is also something being an older married couple, I guess not older, like middle age. What would you describe the era of your life? 50s is a hard...
I don't know, because I'm going to be 40 in like a week. And so I'm like, oh, they're so young.
Well, but like 50 is the halfway point if you're lucky.
Don't say that.
Well, I mean, mathematically speaking.
Oh my God, I'm 10 years to halfway dead.
No, what I'm trying to say is you're already halfway to dead.
Oh, shit.
Odds are.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes when we have these protagonists that are of varying ages in the short story collection, sometimes I get lost with how old our protagonist is supposed to be because we don't spend as much time with them. And so I kept forgetting that she was that old until they'd bring up her 30-year-old kids.
Yes.
And I was like, right. She's an older lady.
Yeah, me too. I think I just make everybody my age when I'm reading about them.
That makes sense.
Makes it really weird.
Except for that one scene, makes it way more appropriate. Makes it sexy, I guess.
There's the moment that Darcy lists the kind of the moments that make a marriage. Like she describes loving each other in sickness and in health, living those things. I really love the way she describes their aging bodies lovingly.
Yeah.
Like there's so much, you can feel the intimacy of this relationship.
My favorite part was her sharing when she got really sick, she had food poisoning, and how he took care of her because like I've had that where I've just been so grateful. I'm like, oh, he's so patient and nice. And I would literally die right now if I was by myself. I would just dehydrate and die. Like, what do people do? Yeah, I related hard.
Yeah. So let's talk about the night of. Darcy goes to the garage because she can't change the TV channel.
The entire impetus of our story happens because she really wanted to watch 2.5 Men. Now that's relatable.
Yeah, I hated that. Oh, we should say too, she's by herself because Bob is away on a trip. Josh, you mentioned he's an accountant, and he also has they both, I guess, have a hobby of collecting rare coins.
Yes, he's a numismatist, which is a coin collector, and her dad was, and she has definitely, they open a side business of collectible coins that eventually expands to other collectibles. So yeah, when he's on the road, he hits estate sales or coin sale conventions.
I love that in this lead up when they're talking about their marriage and kind of like describing Bob, I love the little bits of foreshadowing that because stuff that is not it's just little things and they're so mundane, like I said. But when the first time they mention, that he travels, sometimes he's going out, when the night of, he's out of town for some reason. And he has a big SUV, which seems out of character for him, but he's meticulous.
And he doesn't have any lady friends.
Yeah.
Women are never around. It's always men. Because women fucking know we have that instinct and they think he's a creep. Sorry, go on. I was really excited about that part.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that.
There are these little tiny things that you're like,
it's
that's something
it's
off.
Like sowing seeds of discomfort. And then when she needs the batteries for the remote to watch garbage. She goes out to the garage where he has all of his meticulous stuff. Like the garage is pristine, perfect. And she stubs her toe on a box that's sticking out, which I don't understand because this garage is pristine. But
in the book, I like that she's like it's like she almost killed herself in this trip. It's so dramatic. And then seeing it in the adaptation where it's just
yeah, they do play it a little differently.
Yeah.
It's fun though, because it's like just one of those marriage things. She likes to buy out of catalogs, and he's kind of like, yeah, you do that too much. And he had started to hide them because she's an out of sight, out of mind kind of person, and he's an everything in its place kind of person. And she finds this box of like 200 mail catalogs, and she's getting really pissy about it. She's like, God damn it, Bob. Like we're going to go bankrupt because I want to buy a few things out of a catalog. And as she's digging through, she finds the huge red flag. I think we can all, like, nobody would be confused about this at this point. She finds a bondage magazine.
Yeah. And
one that is like just too extreme.
Yeah.
Like the model on the cover looks to be in genuine terror.
She's naked and tied
to a
up
chair
and screaming.
I do like that when she looks at the back cover, she's like, oh, thank God that scream looks fake as fuck. Okay, at least we're there. Because that was a concern I also had when she starts talking about there's no barcode, there's no price, there's nothing identifying.
Yeah, the fact that doesn't get brought up again is...
I think her answer is right.
Yeah,
I think her answer is correct.
it would be something that would be like in one of those magazine,
like a black sleeve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where the
and
barcode
she's
would be.
Like, I don't need to think about that anymore.
Right.
What else could it be? She said, what else could it be? And there's one other answer. And she's like, I don't need to think.
She's hoping it's what does she call it? Because they changed
it's mail investigation is what it is in the book.
Yeah.
And mail exploration in the movie.
Yeah, which is fine because she's like, it's sometimes guys like explore. She's just trying to excuse it. Like, oh yeah, maybe he was like, do I like bondage? And then she's hoping no, because it's just in a stack of her magazines, her shopping magazines. But something about that just really, she can't let it go. It upsets her that it's with her stuff.
And when she goes to put the box away, she puts it back under and hears this clunk. And immediately is like, nope.
I love that so much.
Nope, don't need to know what that was, because I love the bit where she says no because we're in the garage and it's winter. So there could be mice back there and they can bite when they get cold or whatever.
Yeah.
I love that of the like, whatever's back there will hurt me. I don't need to know.
How alien the sound of a clunk is in... I just love how ominous the simple sound is.
And it's very upsetting because when she gets a flashlight and kind of looks to see what this space is, it's very clean. So that tells her that Bob has been back there recently.
I do have to, for a second, we've kind of been glossing over the movie because for the most part, it's pretty much just a 1-for-1.
It's pretty solid adaptation, yeah.
Besides the fact that instead of 2.5 men in the movie, she's trying to find the remote to turn off torture porn movie.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
So one thing I do want to mention here about this scene in the movie is, thank God, we see the entire process of her digging out everything from under the desk and then meticulously putting everything back. It takes so long. Is that just me? That this she goes under the desk and there's a hidden panel and she finds a box, and inside the box is a blood donor card, a library card, and a driver's license. And she freaks out, and it just, in the movie, it just takes a really long time. In the book, however, it's really cool. I think the way the short story reveals information is so, it gives you just enough information that you know what's going on, but they don't have to say it.
Yeah.
It's it's almost disorienting, but in a way that you're kind of catching the cliff notes of what are just the most important thoughts she's having.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. It's like you can, through reading about her thoughts, you can feel her thinking around what she has found.
Mm-hmm.
It is tense and agonizing, the short story.
I really liked the one of the restraints in the story that wasn't used in the movie is not even bringing up BD or killings or this woman until after she finds the material. And then you find out, because I like that we get to have that name rings a bell. Why does Marjorie Duvall ring a bell? And then as we come to find out, it's this piece of an ongoing serial killer situation. Whereas the movie put it in the first 5 minutes, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, with the green screen news channel.
That news channel thing was really bad. Not a lot of budget went to that.
I don't know though. I liked how they used the news thing because the newscaster talked to her, like kind of broke that so that we could have her internal struggle without her having to do like VO or talk to herself.
Yeah, that's super smart. Again, the way Big Driver actually did well with having the knitting society women, which I wish they would have used more to do that internal. But yeah, her going through the who's going to believe I didn't know, the kids are going to find out. She imagines the news anchor breaking the news that Beatty's been caught and all of this stuff.
I love too how she goes directly into like investigative mode because she's kept all their records and stuff from his travels and the sales that he's gone to. And so she meticulously can match up where like his lack of alibi, basically.
And it is not difficult. It is the second she knows and allows herself to be like, oh, I think this is what it is. Because at first she's like, she goes upstairs to Google it and she types in Marjorie Duvall's name and then adds Beatty at the end because she's like, I don't want to, but why prolong? I just need to make sure right now. And she finds it, immediately, like it all matches up. He's been killing since the 70s.
Yeah. He's on his 12th victim, I think. No, 11th.
Yeah. And he took a 16-year-long break that was corresponded basically to the start of their marriage.
Yeah, the last murder in the first cycle was 3 months before Bob and Darcy met, which is scary as fuck.
Yes.
I have one bone to pick here, and it is the audiobook. Jessica Hecht, she does the Big Driver narration and this narration, and her voice for men is gravel, and I hate it. Every male character talks like that.
I hate to be negative, but I really hate something else about her readings.
Yeah.
Because sometimes she does this. And it is
It's so fucking annoying.
Fucking inappropriate.
Darcy's
I hate it. I'm
voice.
sorry.
It's weird that her normal reading voice is just a normal ass voice.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And then
she'll be like this. And I don't like this.
I love that. I wish people listening could see the physicality you have to do
anger.
to reach that pitch.
I really have to go through. It's like that one guy who played that dragon in that Lord of the Rings movie.
Yep.
Where he had to fully like get into like, I'm just crawling around on the floor doing her voice. Listeners, imagine that.
But at this point, the reason I bring it up is because while she's been in full panic, cleaning up everything, putting everything back in its place, Bob has called and left several messages. And something that I think both the book and movie did really well for each other on an opposite side was in the book. Every moment she knew exactly where Bob was in her head of his routine, what he's
like clockwork,
probably doing.
yeah.
And the way they showed that in the movie is when he's gone, she finds notes everywhere and he knows exactly what she does. He knows her exact routine every second he's out of town.
I also this is one thing I like in the movie that's a bit different from the book is in the book, maybe this is just me, I got, even after what happens, maybe it's her delivery, the woman who reads the audiobook. He's just so chipper the whole time. And like, you feel that I felt at least that even after he is confronting her, he's like being genuine because he's a liar.
No, yeah, I liked that in the book. And after listening to it, I had to read it because I'm like, this is so my jams. And also, I just needed to read it in my own voice and not hers. No offense, she does fine. I just don't like it. And for me, it felt like really genuine to that psychopathic kind of trait of course, he's just going to be like, oh, honey, I'm not going to do this, to get like very conversational, like any minor marriage spat you'd have where you have been together so long, you have such good communication that you can just solve this by talking through it, by like, okay, well, we're going to communicate about this. Let's have a conversation. And it does such a good job of that because it's like he doesn't have emotions like
he doesn't have the guilt.
Normal person. So he doesn't think, he's like, well, I know this is wrong. Society would think it's wrong. She would think it's wrong, but he can't connect that to actual real feeling.
That's not fair though, because he didn't do it. Beatty did it.
He's just lying to make her feel better and not take the blame because he's arrogant and prideful.
Yeah, anyway, but the point, what was I trying? The point I was trying to make, no worries. No, in the movie with the notes, we were talking about the notes. Is I think that is a good bit to show the controlling side of him.
Yeah,
because in the book, the only time we see that is, okay, what happens is she freaks out and she's like trying to decide what to do. Long story short, she's like, I don't fucking know. I'm going to bed. They talk on the phone and he knows
he knows something's wrong in her voice.
The audiobook performance is so fucking funny.
I love the audiobook.
It's endearing, hearing her try to sound normal when you know that the character is trying to not let anything through her voice.
If you come home, I'll punch you in the face.
It's so fucking, it's so forced. And at least
as compared to the movie where she sounds like she has never known how to talk at all. And she's like, hi, honey.
I think in the movie it's more, she's acting more like, I can't get my shit together and I have to, but it's already happening. Oh shit.
Anyway, I'm all over the place. What am I trying to say? Long story short, they have this moment on the phone and the whole time she's like trying to deal with the fact that talking to him is calming her down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like she has to deal with the fact that he's still her husband and she very much still loves him, which is fucked.
That got me.
Yeah.
But she eventually is like, I gotta go to bed. I will think about this in the morning. And she wakes up in the middle of the night to him stroking her face.
Because he's not supposed to be back till 6 the next evening.
And it freaks me the fuck out.
It was so fucking tense. Scary.
Yeah.
And so when he is like stroking her face, she thinks like, oh, it has never occurred to her how possessive this is. And the notes, I think, are a really cool part of showing, like, he leaves a note in this candy bin that she likes candy, and he leaves a note to be like, hey, think about it. You shouldn't be doing this. And it's like, rude. That's weirdly, like, controlling.
Yeah, for sure. The scene in the movie of him showing up at home in the middle of the night and
magic.
Teleporting. Yeah, teleports into the bedroom somehow. Yeah. None of that made any fucking sense.
Well, for the second time, because it shows him following a lady at a diner. The lady leaves and he's like, I'll take my check. And then it cuts to her walking to her car and he's sitting in his car watching her.
Yeah.
Yeah, after she had walked out ahead of him.
Yes.
I don't appreciate when movies do that.
Yeah. No, it's bad form. But the entire scene, that scene did go on way too long of them having the conversation in the bedroom. Yeah, in the movie. But by the end of it, him just casually getting ready for bed while she is terrified. The way her body freezes when he's like, would you turn off the light already?
We should say this actress plays Amanda in Lisi's Story.
Yes.
And Josh and I
Joan Allen.
Yeah, Joan Allen. We talked about how much we love her performance. And
Yes.
that she does Ben, you would like her performance. She does an amazing job. And she does an amazing job in this scene. But I'm going to be a little constant readery here for a moment. And I try not to be this way about adaptations, but I thought that the exchange in the book was so perfect and compelling.
Yes.
And they could have easily, beat for beat, had the exact same scene play out for us, because he's just the way he's like stroking her, hair awake, and he's like, "Oh, you found my stuff. Aw, shucks." And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, I had this childhood friend. And he's like just telling her all of this information. And you're just sitting there in horror because you're like, what is the purpose of him telling her this? What is going to happen
How
next?
sincere is he being? Like, that's the thing that scared me, is that the whole time he is putting on this act of like,
the good husband.
Okay, you figured out my secret. I gotta come clean, but you're gonna forgive me.
We have a great marriage. You don't want to ruin that.
And once you hear the explanation, it's all going to make perfect sense. And his explanation is that he was infected with these thoughts and these feelings.
Yeah, by his friend Brian Delanthe, who he talks about how they were gonna kidnap these snooty girls at school. So his thing is like, women are sluts,
Snoots,
and
man. Those dirty
they're
snoots.
always trying to entice me, but they never give it up, and so I have to kill them. It all makes sense.
You have to teach them the lesson.
Yeah, so he and his friend Brian had concocted, according to him, and who knows if Brian if
Was
that was
real?
true, concocted this idea of kidnapping these girls at school and basically making them screw their way to safety in life.
After, in the book at least, they brought guns to school and killed a bunch of teachers.
Right. And bragging that it was like, we were way ahead of those Columbine kids. This would have, we would have put it on the map.
It's like the way he tells her this
gross.
story is like he just expects her to understand his perspective, which is terrifying. Like, well, you get it, right?
Yeah,
like, I'm explaining it, so you get it. It makes sense.
He does a really good job of trying to keep that going of this is fully relatable.
I want to share real quick here. So he acts like Brian, BD, his initials, is the dark thing inside of him that makes him kill.
His dark passenger.
He goes unconscious, which I also don't believe. And she doesn't either, which I love. She's like, no, you don't. But BD, like as a word, not the two initials, is the name of the author who wrote a book about Dennis Rader, which is what this is based on, the BTK killer. So I just liked that
cool.
little, King took BD and made it BD.
That's so funny because it being BD initially made me think of BTK immediately.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's perfect. It works.
It does. Can we mention real quick, because it becomes pretty important, that she shares with us this thing that she did when she was a kid, which was stare into the mirror. And her mom, who sounds like a real bitch in this moment, would swat her away from it because she'd get so close. And her mom's like, I don't want to have to, wipe your fingerprints or nose prints away. What are you looking at anyway? You're no beauty queen. And she explains herself as I'm plain, but on, Friday night, I can put on makeup and be downright pretty. And Bob is plain too. And she just talks about looking into the mirror as a child, just trying to see what she was sure was this other world and this mirror version of everything. What you guys did that as a kid too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is my favorite part of this story.
It just taps into that thing inside of you that it makes
so
her so
scary.
relatable too.
Mirrors to this day scare the shit out of me. I can't sleep in a room with a mirror.
Really?
Yeah, no, mirrors freak me out in a major way. I do not like it.
I used to have a bunk bed. Well, it was the bunk bed top and a futon under. And I had a mirror in my room, and I would hang upside down and look in the mirror upside down, and that was my mirror world.
Yeah, no, I do not like mirrors.
But I love she would look until she knew she saw something different.
She said,
like-
if it's another a darker world,
Yeah.
and that's where the darker girl lives, and
Yeah.
if you could somehow get past her and enter the mirror and go outside, the rest of the world would be there too.
So
I was like,
cool.
oh fuck, that's so scary.
And like any listeners, if you didn't do this, which makes you the weird one, if you stare into a mirror long enough, like that, especially if it's like darker or dark, things start to distort.
Oh yeah, I don't like that either.
That's
Me
awesome.
neither. It's
Yeah,
scary.
if you
I don't
stare
like
into
it.
your own, I mean, that's why you do not do mushrooms and look in a mirror.
That makes perfect sense. I
Oh,
would
you
never
can
make that
never-
I
mistake.
did that. It was great.
Don't like it.
I accepted myself.
Oh, that's really nice.
Thanks.
The Beatty/Bob uses in this conversation, he's basically using all of the good things he does as Bob to excuse what he did. Like he
It's
does the
so
he
fucked.
leads the Cub Scouts, and he's like, I bet you thought I'd be done with leading Scouts when our kid was done. No, I keep doing it because it's good for the community.
Gotta
he's-
give back.
He's a community organizer.
Yeah.
What a great guy.
Being around fucking kids, which, oh my gosh. Okay, I hate that we lost this from the movie, and I get it, but
Yeah.
one of the victims was a 10-year-old boy who he sent a note to the police because, like BTK, you taunt the police that it was an accident. The kid came home while he was killing his mom, and this also fucked me up. He'd bite the women, like down to the bone sometimes.
Yeah.
So just that reminds me of Norman Daniels. Like anytime we have a biter, it's particularly like, I don't know, just gruesome and awful. It's all awful.
It makes
but-
my jaw hurt.
yeah. And this kid, he told her, and he told the police that this kid didn't suffer. And he did not suffer is going to be a recurring thought that she has as she tries to go about her life with a monster.
I was about to say, as she justifies not immediately turning him in. But I don't know if that's fair, because he does a lot of work in manipulating her.
Yeah.
When he tells her about all of this, he's unloading all of this horrific shit. And then when he's like, you can turn me in, I will do nothing.
Just bullshit.
I could never hurt
Yeah.
you.
I'll go peacefully.
But listen, it'll ruin your life and the kids' lives, and you'll live on the street, and it'll be, but you totally could. And it's,
Well, but there's what he dangles in front of her. The trade-off is I'll never do this again. Like I told you I came clean. I didn't do it for 16 years. That was because of you.
no, he says, I didn't do it for
for
20
20
years. And she keeps thinking, I love this scene because she keeps responding to what he is saying, but only in her head.
Yeah.
Correcting his lies.
Yeah, correcting him and being like, what the fuck are you talking about? You are murdering humans. Like, it's...
But they were snoots.
Yeah.
Like the way he relies on that so heavily. Like she cannot
It's so
get it through
childish.
her head.
It is so... It's so scary.
Yeah.
I hate all of this.
Yeah, it's so great.
So she ends up making an agreement essentially that they will put this past them. If he never does it again, he won't send Marjorie's ID and taunt the police. We also find out he has a list of all his misspellings in his wallet, so he keeps consistent.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
a weird
fucking
bit.
Crazy.
Yeah, he's trying to throw the police off. So he misspells really simple words, but perfectly spells real big ones.
Yeah. And that he will not send the ID. He'll bury it, and then they will move on.
Can I share an excerpt from the book?
Yes.
Because this part just really struck me, and it's like, it sort of encapsulates like her anguish, because you do have that question like, okay, how can you not stab him in the heart immediately or go to the police immediately, regardless of, there could be a lot of criticism there. But it's the next morning when she wakes up, he's left her a note and saying, I'll take care of those documents like you asked. I love you, honey, Bob. And drew a little heart around his name. She's like, wow, he hasn't done that in years. And she all of a sudden feels that love for him. And it makes her like sick to her stomach. And she thinks she feels what is to come for them, like to come for her primarily as his wife in their home now. And she feels like that new role kind of closed around her like a straitjacket or a coffin. This was the world she had believed in as a child. It had been here all the time waiting for her. This was the darker life where every truth was written backward. And it's just so good.
Yeah.
This also is, I believe, the segment that had maybe my favorite part of the movie. It's nothing. It's basically nothing really happens, but it's all about the sound. It is the first day, or, in the movie, the time isn't as clear, but it is her. She has a nightmare.
Where he's choking her in the movie. He's killing her.
And she wakes up from this nightmare and she's wandering around the house. And we know, or we think we know, Bob is there. She's calling, Bob, where are you? And it's just her wandering around the house. And she we hear the sink on, turn on and then stay on. And she wanders in and finds the sink left on. And you can hear noises in the house. It's this I thought it was an awesome moment of making the universal experience of when you live with another person, especially someone you've been in a relationship with for years, all of these noises. When they are home, you hear just the noise of your person. And this scene turns that into, you just feel the threat of his presence in the house as she is just trying to go about her day.
The audio, what they do with the sound too, is really good. It's like the best sound piece in the movie.
It
has style.
It gives me, and this is giving this movie way too much credit, but it does give me, what's the name of the movie? House of the Devil. There's a movie that it is just a lady house sitting in this creepy old mansion.
Oh, is it from the 70s or 80s?
No, it's from the past 10 years. Oh. And it's half the movie is just her wandering around this house and nothing happening. But the entire time, something terrible is going to happen. So the entire time it makes a woman wandering around an empty house the scariest thing. Tom Noonan's in it. Look up Tom Noonan. It has the word house in it.
But bringing up the mirror stuff, I'm glad you got to it, because this is also the point where she starts referring to herself that the darker wife isn't Darcy Anderson, it's Mrs. Brian Delanthe. And I fucking love that line so much.
Should we talk about how they use the mirrors in the movie?
Yeah, because I missed it for a bit. I was glad you pointed it out.
I think the first instance of it, and they do a lot of mirroring throughout, is after some celebration they're having. Oh, isn't it their anniversary party?
Their 25th anniversary.
Yeah, where we meet boobs.
Next door boobs. Yeah.
Next door boobs. They were great. No denying that. And so we get a lot of lecherous glances from Bob too throughout the movie, which is fun. But they go home, and I didn't like this. She's saying are you a bad boy?
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't like that at all.
And he's like, you're a naughty girl. And then they turn the mirror in the bedroom so that they can...
So he can watch them because she's not facing the mirror.
Yeah. And then we see him bone.
It was very, it felt like authentically campy anniversary sex.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, we've been married for that long.
Both special event sex.
Yeah, get the mirror.
But the way he in that sex scene, the way he is looking at himself in the mirror and then caressing the earrings that she's wearing.
Oh yeah, we haven't even mentioned the earrings. Yeah.
These are only in the movie. He gives her some fish earrings because she's a Pisces.
And then when she discovers and goes to do research, she finds a picture of one of the victims wearing the earrings.
Which is horrible. That was a really good moment in the movie, actually.
Yeah, that played really well.
What? We haven't talked about the guy that played Bob at all. What did you guys think of our Bob?
Man. All right. He was all right. I kept wanting him to be someone else. I don't know who, but he's like everything about him was just like, God, this is so close to someone else that I'm thinking.
See, that's how I think overall he does a good job.
Mm-hmm.
It's just at the start of the movie when we first meet him, I was like, wow, they did a really good job casting this guy because he looks like no one.
Yeah,
Like, he just looks like
general.
Just a guy. Yeah.
a dude, completely anonymous, not a movie star looking dude.
Whereas Dennis Rader was just a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then as the movie went on, I was like, oh, well, that's good casting, I guess. But also, just a dude isn't very exciting to watch. I did wish he had a little more verve,
Gravity.
personality,
Gravity to him.
Yeah, it's especially in the going to bed, the you found my stash. He's just a little too flat. No, flat for me.
I could see that. Yeah.
I do love, however, the 2 times we see him following someone that he's driving his car and crying.
Yeah.
That's very
That's
upsetting.
very cool.
We should also mention we keep seeing another guy too, which is the
Oh,
biggest
yeah.
I
departure
fucking
from the
hate
movie.
it. I hate it.
And my problem with the movie. I was on
I'm
board
glad.
until then.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
Yeah, it's weird. His first, because we see him.
We see him at the anniversary. He's at the bar, the hotel bar at the anniversary party. He's at the wedding.
He's at the wedding. He's everywhere they go, it'll cut to him. But there's this one weird scene where it's when she goes to the garage for the batteries before she finds
I
the
don't
thing.
know what that
That
was.
I'll tell you what I think it was
Okay.
supposed to be, because she has not found the magazine or the cubby or anything. And she's in the garage, and as she hears a noise, and this is not in the book.
It sounds like a knock. on the
Yeah,
door.
yeah.
It sounds like a knock, and she turns all the lights off like she's hiding.
That's what I would do.
And she
If I wasn't
sure,
expecting a knock and it was late at night.
Yeah, sure.
That's how I know
But
exactly
She
who
then
you are.
goes to like the window of her garage and peeks out, and there is a silhouette of a guy out there. And then a car drives up, and I guess the guy gets in, and then they drive
No,
away.
he walks away to get into his car, pulls into the driveway to turn
Oh,
around.
okay.
and
Okay,
goes,
see,
sure.
I thought that's what happened too, but I was like, well, why did he?
There's no
He
reason
pulled
for him
up
to turn
so
around.
far in the driveway, it looked like he was coming to the house.
Yeah, here's what I think this scene maybe. This is what I thought this scene was. I thought this is going to set up her thinking there's an accomplice.
Oh.
Because in the book, there is a very brief moment where she's like, oh,
Yeah.
what? Well, it's when he's like, you found my stash, but it wasn't me. It was Brian. And she's like, the fuck, who is Brian? But sometimes these people have accomplices. I thought this was setting up what was going to be a twist. She thinks that he has an accomplice who's this other guy, but then she finds out, oh, it's his dead friend and he's just crazy. And then at the end, it's like, oh, this guy that she thought was the accomplice is actually the detective.
I hated it. And part of why I hated it is that in the book, we get in this conversation in bed where he is unloading all the information. He mentions that he was interviewed by the police only one time.
As a witness.
As a witness.
Yeah.
And they've never, as far as he is aware, that's the closest they've ever come. They weren't even onto him.
Well, because he's smarter than they are.
Exactly. And I felt like putting this guy in from the beginning ruins that.
Yes, it does,
'Cause
because it's
then when
such
the
a good
reveal happens at the
payoff in
end,
the
yeah.
book. Yeah. I really enjoyed that payoff.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great ending.
Yeah, I thought having him there undercuts it so badly.
Yeah, the movie kind of confuses this whole character.
Really
Yeah.
shits the bed with that.
Yeah.
It also it doesn't handle the time jump the way I wish, because one thing that I love is that she makes the agreement and then it kind of glosses over some next major events that
Months
happen all the way
pass,
until
yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah.
One day he comes home excited as fuck, and she for a split second thinks he's gonna run in and say, they caught me, they're on their way to arrest me, it's
All
over.
over.
But no, it's a happy sound And she knows almost before he says it, the only thing in the world that can make him that happy. And that is a double-dated penny, which he has been searching for his whole life, but would only accept it if he found it by chance.
I get that as I look around my room and all my collector's books. It's stumbling on a find is so rewarding.
Yeah,
For
this
sure.
did make me think about how I wish I had something I collected.
I mean, you can.
Well, I have
You
in the past.
Magic cards.
I guess.
What is it
That's-
like when you find a really cool one?
That is true.
There you
Okay,
go.
you know what?
Yep.
I should buy more magic cards. You're right.
Oh, no.
I know,
no.
yeah, that's what this is all about. This is an intervention. For you to buy more magic
For you to buy
cards.
more. In the movie, they I don't know how I feel about this change. It establishes early in the movie that she wants to buy him this double-dated coin, and he goes into the you know, have to find it in the wild. But she sets the dominoes in the movie by buying one herself and putting it into his change jar like weeks before the night of.
I completely missed that.
Oh, did you?
I didn't know
Oh,
why
yeah,
they both kept shaking the pig.
She was
penny
seeing,
jar.
yeah, she was seeing how full it was, and then when she decided to slip it in,
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I
What does that
missed
mean?
that entirely.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I think
that's
yeah.
what happened.
Yeah, because
Oh.
she's also that's why she's not surprised when she sees it in the movie. Is because that's like she's like, you just found this? Like she
That
doesn't
makes
play
it
it very well.
seem more intentional that
Yes.
she's not going to continue this charade because
Right.
in the
Which
book,
I hate.
In the
in the book
agreed.
he just finds it and she's like, all of a sudden I knew what I was going to do because he's
It's
like, we got to
just the
celebrate.
the opportunity.
a moment of opportunity, and
Yep.
it's not even at that point that
No,
I think
it
she
isn't.
makes that decision. I don't think when he
Well,
finds it and they go to celebrate.
It's at dinner.
I
she
think,
makes
yeah,
it,
it's only
But I'm
after he's drunk.
It makes what she went through just more interesting because it's like by
Pure
chance.
chance.
So they go out to dinner. He gets hammered in the celebration. She drives home.
And she remarks that he hasn't drank that much in a long time because he doesn't drink usually.
Yes, he usually keeps himself very under control.
Which we know why.
Yeah, and she asks him to bring her up a drink, which in the movie they do a great job of setting this bit up.
They
that
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob is described at his most charming like a cartoon character, and he is
He's being goofy.
yeah, he's being a goof, and he's holding a tray up like a fancy
Maitre
European
d',
waiter.
yeah.
And
Like dancing up the stairs, holding it, high in the air.
yep, and she's like waiting at the top of the stairs around a corner, right? And then he pops up and she comes out, and I love that she says, the look in his eyes, he knows
It's
just
so-
the second before it happens.
I love how she's like, and my knowledge of him was complete in that moment because I knew that he didn't love me. He loved nothing.
Yep.
'Cause
She
she
watches
sees
his
just
face
fury.
change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his eyes are reptilian.
It was all a
There's
charade.
nothing.
He
in
didn't
them.
love her. He loved keeping up the charade of his normal life.
And I wish they'd done a better job in the movie, but in the book, he is fucked up.
Oh my
from the
God.
stairs.
Yeah, he falls down the stairs in the book and she can see a knot in his neck and his back breaks and his arm breaks.
It's when she shoves him. First of all, I was huge surprise.
Yeah,
was not
wasn't-
expecting that.
yeah, yeah.
Although, in retrospect, should have. Stephen King fucking loves shoving people downstairs. How many stair murders have we had? A lot. Pie,
Yep.
Oh.
Vera.
Vera, yeah. It, when they shove Pennywise down the stairs and he dies.
Oh, yep. We're just lying.
What? First of all, huge surprise when she pushes him down the stairs. And then, like, my immediate thought is like, oh, he's just going to get up and it's going to become, because they set it up with that when he tells her, this isn't one of those stories where the husband chases the wife around with an axe or whatever. I was fully expecting that to be the final
become,
act.
yeah.
But then she runs downstairs and she's like, oh no. And he has his spine sticking out of the back of his neck, basically. It's like, oh, okay. She did it.
The way that she plays it, though, and she's like, I don't know what came over me. I'm going to get help. And he is desperate enough to kind of buy it for a while there and keeps asking, why'd you
because
push me?
There's some truth in that
Yeah.
because she reacts like, I mean, that would be hard because you're killing two people.
Yeah.
The person you didn't know who's a monster and deserves to die, and the person that you've loved and built this life with for 20 some years.
And she gets a dish towel, puts it in a plastic Ziploc bag, and shoves it in his mouth.
So bad ass.
Fucking rad.
What a cool thing to do.
And it looks so stupid in the movie because he's not so fucked up. The reason she's able to do it is because one arm is broken. The arm that's not broken is dislocated and under him. So the desperation at which he has to fight to do anything is horrifying. But in the book, in the movie,
it's so funny. He dies so fast. Like it's very funny that like you can hold your breath longer than she chokes him.
Yeah, it's real bad.
There is a movie. Oh, Devin's gonna be so ashamed of me. I can't remember the name of it, but
The House of the Devil.
Yeah. A woman kills this big, huge bad guy by shoving her like fist and whole forearm down his throat and choking him to death. And when it happened in the movie, I lost my mind. So it can be done well. Like that, when I read that in the book, I was like, this is going to be so cool to watch her do to him.
Nope. She just lays on his arm and they hug until he dies.
Yep. And she grabs his tie.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. More evidence. And she goes to call 911 and she stopped crying because she's cleaned up all the evidence. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. She stops and thinks about her kids finding out that their dad's dead, and it starts the waterworks all over again.
She draws on what she needs.
She pulls from their marriage to get away with murder.
I love that that's not the first thing that she tries, because she's while she's killing him, she's crying because obviously.
And she's thinking, oh, this will be good for me later.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, oh, good. Thank God. If I didn't call in tears, then they'd think something was up. And yeah, when she like leaves and then comes back and she's like, fuck, I'm not crying. And then she goes and stares at him for a while. Yeah. And she's like, this isn't working. I don't care about this. Oh, my kids. Now I can call. Yeah. It's really good.
She gets so lucky with the police officer who responds to this, because it is a friend of one of the ladies in her book club or knitting club or something. Yeah, and he's just like, you're coming home with us. We're going to take care of you. He's really sweet to her.
When he's like, ma'am, get your coat. And she's like, oh, fuck, I'm fucked.
She has a guilty brain because she knows what she did.
Right. She gets away with it. So a few months after the funeral, a man shows up, retired detective Holt Ramsey.
I'm sorry, can I, real quick, at the funeral, I just love this because it just made me feel so good for her. Her son throws a clump of dirt on the casket and she thinks to herself, that looks like a turd.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sad. We'll get into the final scene of the movie that undercuts everything the movie does by saying it out loud.
Oh, yeah.
Watching her in the movie, watching the funeral scene, watching everybody around her and her trying to play the role.
It looked like she was almost laughing.
Yeah,
like
the one point when she hides her face.
Yeah. And her son's like, it's okay, Mom.
I was like, is she smiling a little? Did she get a giggle?
Yeah, she did it. The actress did a good job of.
So a few months later, this retired detective shows up and she invites him in for coffee.
She notices his limp and she's remembering Bob telling her, oh, I was interviewed once, this old guy with a limp. It's really cool.
And she invites him in. They have some coffee and she holds it together very well until she makes the classic interrogation mistake of correcting the person asking you a question. Yeah.
Showing she knows way more about the BD killer and the murders than she let on initially.
Yeah, like the question, what she corrects him on basically notes that she knows timeline and like certain details that you'd need to be following closely.
I love this scene so much because it's this guy, he's a retired detective, and just the way he interacts with her is like it's just so opposite from the movie. It's like so just warm, and he's like, I just need to find out, what happened.
Can I tell you, before it was revealed who this guy was, before it revealed his name, I thought it was going to be Bill Hodges.
Oh, that would have been fun.
That would have been badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, this cool old ex-detective. Yeah, it's Bill. And then it wasn't, and I got a little disappointed, but he's still cool.
Yeah.
I love in the book when she doesn't lie to him. There comes a point where he asks her a very pointed question, and she describes, like, she just holds up her hand and she's like, in that moment, it was like being married again. It was like being in that marriage where you can communicate with each other without saying anything, basically. And she's just telling him with her eyes the whole truth.
Yeah.
It's so good.
He knew that she knew, and then she knew that he knew that she knew.
And she knew he could be wearing a wire.
Yeah.
And so she dances around and gives him some stuff. The thing that fucking got me, it is a throwaway line, but they start talking about his deceased wife had to be his memory for him. And she goes, Bob was the same way. If I didn't take him to the dentist, he'd never go. Why wouldn't a man who bites people to death want to go to the dentist ever?
That's really gross.
I didn't catch that.
I was just like, of course he never wanted to go. Of course he forgot all the time.
He doesn't want dental records.
Yeah.
I also loved that when she's thinking about that, I think it's that part, she starts to cry a little bit because it's like that marriage moment, and she angrily wipes her tears away because she's like, this guy wouldn't respect me shedding tears over Bob. Because he asks if she has something, like he has acid reflux or something, or heartburn, and she's like, no, but I have, this other thing. It was one of Bob's pills, and he's like, I'd rather set myself on fire than take anything from that guy. And she just is like, more coffee. Like, she just doesn't react to that. The other thing that fucked me up was he's telling her, like, basically he's like, ma'am, my job is to bring the victims' families closure and answers. And he tells her the truth about the little boy, which is just like so textbook, like, of course.
Yeah.
So fucked up that this little boy, that in the note that Beatty had sent the cop, said, oh, he didn't suffer. And that's what she knew from reading the news reports. But what was not released is that his genitals had been bitten off. And immediately we're like, it's amazing that a character that you're like, oh yeah, it can't get worse.
Yeah. And her reaction to it, because she just breaks down, and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. But then the way, like, I think he needed to see her have that reaction. And if it's something, it's something that she shouldn't know if she really wasn't complicit in all this. And so it told him her truth. But I love that he saw her truth. He's like, I knew as soon as I looked at you, I knew everything. Like, basically, I knew you didn't know. I knew you found out. I knew you killed him.
It's because the book detective was a good one.
Yeah.
Jesus fuck.
This whole scene in the movie just confused me.
Hold on, before we get to the movie, because it's terrible, and I don't want to deter from it once we get to it. But the way the story ends is that, they basically, like, we're gonna leave. We both have this knowledge. Head out. And
well, I love that he's like, okay, I'm gonna go, and she's like, well, what about the closure for the families? And he's like, oh, this is horrible. He's like, well, that little boy's dad knows what happened to him, but I don't think it would change his life. He drinks basically, like, he's already dead, essentially. He's just waiting to die. And then as he hugs her and tells her, you did the right thing.
In reality, he wanted the closure for him because he failed at catching the killer. But he walks out to his car, and she steps out, and she calls out to him the story of Brian Delancey.
Yeah.
And she watches him put the BD together. And I don't know, like, that was a moment she got to kind of close the last mystery on him and put that to bed.
Him something.
Because he's also, like, about to die.
Yeah.
He's
very old.
Weeks. He says he's sick, doesn't he? Like, he's
just super old.
Yeah.
And he also gave her something, because after their conversation, because who could she talk to this about?
Right.
It was the first time she felt like herself and not the darker wife. So are we going to talk about how the movie fucks that up so bad?
It's so stupid that he accuses her. He holds up. Okay, I don't even understand. He holds up a piece, like
he
a
had
newspaper
it in the car
clipping.
earlier. We see that earlier when he's stalking them.
Yeah, and he has this newspaper clipping, and it's about Beatty, and he hands it to her, and she, like, tries to push it away, and he's like, no, look at this, and he flips it over.
Turn it.
And it's written in, like, crazy person marker.
Yep.
Beatty, Beadie, in case that hasn't been clear this entire time, with arrows pointing to Bob and
To a B
Darcy
and a D
with the B and the D
first.
circle.
Then
Yeah.
down to
And he's like, so you were Beatty is you and it's your initials, so you're obviously.
It's like something a high school girl writes in her notebook when
he did. We
she's
watch him write it in the car.
when she's got a crush on somebody.
It's so
It was like a very
stupid.
teenage girl thing to do.
And then she's like, okay, no, go. I don't know what you're talking about. And then he goes to his car and has a heart attack.
Yep.
Yeah. And she starts to open the door and then sees boobs running over to the car, her neighbor, and then closes the door and it's like, what are you doing,
and
lady?
then she goes to the hospital and we get a sequence where we're like, oh, she's gonna fucking.
Because she grabs a pillow out of the closet.
It's the scene from Kill Bill 2 where she's gonna go kill this guy and she grabs a pillow. It's so obvious. And then he's like, hey, okay, you can kill me if you want, but I'm still here. And also we're good.
And also says, you were never going to kill me or else you wouldn't have brought this. Why'd you get the fucking pillow?
So the thing she brought was the box that the ID was in, and inside of it is the penny that he found.
Yeah.
Because, and you get it. You're like, oh yeah, because he's like, oh, it's doubled, and she's like, oh, people are like that too sometimes. I'm like, I know. Yes, why we have that scene? Why'd you tell me that? Sorry.
It's so
not the
stupid.
actress's fault. It's not the actor's fault. It's just.
No, it is just a baffling change.
It's a bad change.
It's
bad.
a bad
It's a
change.
bad change. We don't need it.
No.
We don't need because he also uses the opportunity to explain to her what she's been through, I guess. Like,
yeah,
it's not trusting the audience to get it, I think.
I mean, this movie does that the entire time. The number of flashbacks to or voiceovers of things we heard earlier in the movie, it's like, come on.
So should we rate this one?
Yeah.
But
For
first, let's see. I'm going to go with, I really, really enjoyed the book. The book was awesome. I will definitely read it again. I was hyped to see this movie, and I'll continue that thought when I review the movie. But I'm going to give the story 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
True crime stuff is so my jams. As soon as she found the Bondage magazine, I was like, oh, I know where this is going. And it just, because I, am interested in that stuff. Like I could pick up on all of those moments, which was really satisfying as a reader. Excellent. My favorite of Full Dark No Stars, 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
If I may ask, before we get to Ben's rating, as a true crime junkie, how was the 1-to-1 BDBTK for you? How did he nail that feeling, you think?
Really well.
Yeah.
Because I knew right away who it was modeled after, and he took the important elements from that. I also kind of want to mention, because I feel like it's important to mention this, that Rader's daughter, because he also had 2 kids, he was married, similar things, felt that Stephen King writing this story was exploiting the victims' families. Like, did not appreciate
the
that he
BTK's
based,
actual daughter was like, this sucks because my dad was a huge Stephen King fan. Now he's going to be like, cool, my favorite author. Oh, I love it.
So I want to acknowledge that because I think it's important. But
definitely. I also really enjoyed it. True crime stuff is not my jam, but it's just really well written. It is I think of all the 4 stories of this book, it is the most, it's the scariest of them for me.
Yeah.
Because the situation, the premise is so unthinkable. It is so, and the story itself is very human. It is just,
what would you do if you found that out?
Exactly.
It lets you put yourself in their shoes in a way the other stories for me didn't quite do.
Absolutely. So I thought it was really good. But I can't explain this. I can't justify myself. Maybe it's just because of what book it's in that I'm not feeling a 5 out of 5. I think I got to give it a 4 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
Fair enough.
I don't know what I would have changed, but it's...
You can't deny your gut.
Yeah, maybe it's Big Driver residuals. Maybe it's that the movie was kind of boring.
This wraps up Full Dark No Stars. Should we rate?
Yeah.
Well, we gotta do the
collectively
movie real fast.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
So the movie started out promising, ended like a turd on a casket. I'm going to give it I don't know, 3 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
I'm gonna give it the same, only for it was kind of boring. It drug on, but I really like that actress, and I thought she got a lot of criticism the way she played this role. I thought she did
nailed
good.
it,
I didn't
yeah.
think she did bad at all. But the way it treated the detective story, 3 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
This is the most middling, not just adaptation, but just movie. It's watchable. Like
More watchable than Big Driver.
Oh,
for me, honestly.
obviously. Big Driver was a travesty. And this was just like a movie.
Yeah.
So I think 3 out of 5 blue chambray shirts for sure.
Fantastic. All right, so the collection, Full Dark, No Stars, as a whole, I really enjoyed every single one of these stories. I had a great time getting, like, in the afterwards, like the beginning of Stephen King's Afterward is like, if you found these stories hard to read, boy howdy, I found them hard to write sometimes. But this was an exploration of that. Like, we knew going into this book, this is the kind of shit.
The worst stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for what it promised, it delivered. 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
This is weird because our last novella of this type was different seasons. And the last story in that, The Breathing Method, was my favorite of those. And the other 3 were great, but just didn't strike me the way that one did. And I feel the exact same way about this. Like, this last story is like, hell yeah, 100%. The other ones are fine. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
And I will be the dissent. It's fine. It begins and ends well and has some middling stuff. Big Driver brings the whole score down for me. I hated it so much. The story and the movie were just some of my least favorite King that we have read on the podcast.
Gotcha.
But the stuff I like was fine. So 3 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
And that is it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode, where we will be covering Lunch at the Gotham Cafe, and that is a short story out of Everything's Eventual. For Joshua Kahn and Benjamin Graham, I'm CM Alexander, reminding you, does anyone know anyone? Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. Thank you for listening to Full Dark, No Stars, A Good Marriage. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Derry Public Radio and X at Derry Public. You can email us at derrypublicradio@gmail.com, and you can talk with us and other King fans on our Discord. The link for that is in the show notes. You can also chat with us and fellow King and horror fans by following our friends Stephen King Lovers SKL on Facebook. They're a fun group to have discussions with, so please check them out. That's Stephen King Lovers SKL on Facebook. And one final update for you. Josh and I are covering the 11/22/63 TV series on Patreon for our on-watching episodes. If you've listened to the episodes we did on the book and you want to hear our thoughts on the series, you can get our bonus episodes at the $5 and up tier, plus other cool perks and merchandise, plus a backlog of all of our episodes on Patreon, including our coverage of the Lisi's story episodes. You can follow us on Patreon first to see if you like what we have to offer, and if you do, you can sign up to be a member of the club. That's what we call our Patreon, an idea born from our coverage of different seasons, if you want to know more about that. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.